In-depth coverage of the campaign season continues now. Joining us in studio, because it is a Wednesday morning, Eyewitness News political analyst Joe Fleming. We're going to talk about the primary results in a minute, but first let's talk about that interview with Donald Trump and Megyn Kelly. So you heard her ask the question about changing his tone, but as you watched the interview, did it appear that he was already doing that?
I think he was. I think we saw in the interview a more calm Donald Trump, a more presidential Donald Trump. I think that's what his advisors are telling me he has to do. He's got through the primary. That was a different type of campaign. Now into the general election, a lot more voters. They want to see somebody who they think acts presidential. And I think Donald Trump's starting to move that way.
You know, we were talking off camera about if it is going to be a Trump-Clinton matchup, so to speak, in the general election. And they already are facing high negatives, most of those candidates. But you were telling me you believe that with Clinton, her problem is that it's a deep-seated negative, where Donald Trump, it's kind of a new negative, so he might be able to move the needle quicker.
Right. People know Hillary Clinton very well. They have strong opinions of her. A lot of them are negative. Those are ingrained in those people. It's going to be hard for her to move those people back to her side. With Donald Trump is new. They see him as very boisterous. However, if they can start seeing him as presidential, he may make that negative a lot softer, which should help him in some of the key swing states. All
right, so let's talk about the primaries last night. We had a win for Sanders in Oregon, and then in Kentucky, Clinton winning, but only by 1 point. She spent a lot of money in that state.
Yeah, she dropped a lot of money in there to win that state. She did win the state, and what's happening is Bernie's winning the states, but he's losing the war. Every one of these primaries, she's getting closer and closer to the magic number of 2383. She's now within 100 delegates of that. There's been no sign at all of the super delegates leaving her. As a result of that, it's basically impossible for him to get the nomination. He needed to have some of those super delegates cracked before this point.
I mean, it is possible that they still could. Up until the moment of the convention, they can. But because you're seeing the numbers be the way that they are, is there going to be any top Democrat who finally steps up and says, Mr. Sanders, it's time for you to exit? We haven't heard that yet.
No, not from the Clinton campaign. I think some of the Democrats, the policymakers in the Democratic Party, they're probably trying to talk to Sanders. However, keep in mind, this all ends on June 7th, California, New Jersey, 3 weeks from now. I really believe Bernie Sanders will stay in at least through then. After that, he may step back when he realizes the nomination is not his.
I think a key difference between Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, when they talk about, you know, staying in the election and whether they win or not win, Trump's saying it'd be a waste of time and energy completely if he doesn't win. I don't think candidate Sanders feels the same way.
No, candidate Sanders realizes that he has an awful lot of delegates at this point. He really could have a big impact on the platform of the Democratic Party. And I really believe that's what he's trying to do at this point. Have a strong say at the convention. I think he realizes he's not going to be the nominee, but he has so many delegates, he could have a big impact on what happens, and he knows the Clinton campaign needs his supporters to win this election. So he has a lot of leverage here.
All right. Thank you so much. We appreciate it, and of course we'll be touching base with you in the coming weeks as well. If you'd like to see the full interview, we'll be posting it at WPRI.com.
All right, up coverage of Campaign 2016 continues. Our political analyst, Joe Fleming, back in studio with us this morning. We'll get to Donald Trump's efforts and his wins last night, victories in a minute. But first, let's talk about Bernie Sanders. Joe, it just seems like it's the same story every week. Bernie wins, but he's not really gaining on Hillary Clinton.
He's gaining no ground at all, basically because of the way it's set up. She gets a great number of delegates also. She's inching closer and closer. She's about 92 delegates away. He needs to break into the super delegates. That's not happening. It's getting very late. Even if he wins on June 7th, he's still going to be short. She's going to be the nominee of the party unless something happens with the super delegates.
So Clinton wins in Kentucky, but it wasn't a convincing win.
No.
Is that going to hurt her in November in the general election?
It could. Kentucky's a red state. She's not going to win Kentucky, but she poured a lot of money into Kentucky to win it by a small amount. What she has to look at is the key swing states. Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Florida. Those are states she has to win. If she starts losing those states, there's no path to victory for her.
What point do Clinton and Sanders people, or those two, get together and say, all right, listen, Bernie, there's no shot. You can't win. Let's focus on the party beating Donald Trump and the Republicans. Let's unify. Do you see that happening at all before the convention?
No, I see it happening more towards the convention. I think what we want to see is Bernie Sanders is going to say, I want things on the platform of the Democratic Party. If I can get my issues into the platform, I'm going to come out and support Hillary Clinton very strongly. He's already said he does not want to see Donald Trump as president, but you need more than lukewarm support for Hillary Clinton. He has to get all these young people to really get excited about her and get out and vote. She has a lot of negatives that she has to overcome, and getting Sanders' support can help with that.
Now that Trump has basically wrapped up the Republican nomination, it seems as though He's been infiltrated by consultants to tell him, listen,
Yes.
you need to start acting more like a commander-in-chief would act. Do you notice that change in him?
I noticed the change, but I also believe Donald Trump's a very smart man. He is going to his audience. In the primary, Republicans were very angry, very upset. They wanted to see change. He appealed to that audience, the angry voter. Now he realizes, I'm the nominee. People want to see somebody who's presidential if they're going to vote for him. So he's turning that way now. He's becoming a calmer Donald Trump. The question is, will he stay a calmer Donald Trump, or will he blow up every so often? That's going to be the big thing as we look at the next 5 months.
Knowing the Trump that we know, there's no shot he stays calm. I mean, at all times.
Right, at all times. I'll be surprised. I expect to see a blow up. I'm sure the Clinton campaign is going to try to do exactly that. At the same time, he's going to try to get her to blow up. He's attacking her in certain things. He's trying to bring her down on the woman issue. He knows his numbers are low with females, and he can't bring those numbers up. So what do? You bring your opponent's numbers down. So he's going to be attacking her. So I still see some attacks from Donald Trump. I don't see a totally calm Donald Trump.
We wouldn't want to see a totally calm Donald Trump. It makes for great television for us, right? Thank you, Joe. For the latest campaign 2016 news, just go to our website, WPRI.com.